You gotta finish your food. All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is currently 12:51 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 11th of July, 2025. It is Friday. Happy Friday. You know what I say about Fridays? Fridays are the best days of the week. I think it's Mondays because, with Monday, you could prepare yourself mentally for the achievement that you've planned for yourself, like on the Sunday night for your week. But most working Americans would say, you know what? Fridays, Fridays are the best days for um, just for the week because you have the mindset that it is the weekend and now you can have some good time with yourself, your spouse, or with your family. With that being said, happy Friday. Welcome to the live show. It is your boy Genesis, and this is the Genesis Show. And with that being said, we're going to check out what's going on. I was here yesterday, but earlier in the day. So now we're going to check out what happened on this networks on uh, later hours of yesterday and today. And of course, a lot is going on with the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States. We see what it's doing with immigration, with foreign policies. We see the new update with the tariffs on copper. And the Canadian situation is just sprung up about 2 days ago. So we thought that was a finished done deal. But, with President Donald J. Trump, it's always an ongoing process. He's hands on. In my opinion, he's absolutely transparent and he just wants deals, fair deals, fair trade deals with the United States and other countries. So if you follow the president on Truth Social, you would find out that he's always posting the letters he's sending to these countries about trade. And, it's open, it's right there for every American to see and read and have the information that he's sending to these other people. So, with that being said, we're going to check out um, DHS Secretary Christy Noam, and she has a lot to say concerning Texas, concerning Homeland Security, people coming into the United States. And yes, enjoy the show. It does not matter if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or independent. It does not matter. Even if you are, even if you don't know where you stand right now. Okay, independent essentially. So conservative, liberals, progressive, it does not matter. What matters is you are American. You believe in this beautiful land, home of the brave, land of the free. Okay, so just whatever it is that you have in mind, just keep open mind. Okay, keep an open mind and land of the free, home of the brave. Okay, so just relax. Okay, and know that your fellow American brother is your brother. Your fellow American sister is your sister. Do not um, feel like you have to choose a side or pick a side. It's one big family. It's the United States. It's not a divided state. Okay. So don't create some sort of division. Just stay American. Okay. It's America first before your parties. Okay. Before you're a Republican, before you're a Democrat, you are an American first. So enjoy the show.
Let's bring in DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. She joins us now live on set here in New York. Good to have you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you so much for having me today.
First up, the environment for these ICE agents. We fear what may be coming next as we are not seeing the rhetoric toned down.
No, in fact, it's getting worse. Some of these Democrat leaders in some of these communities and states are really, really elevating the emotion out there and lying and putting these officers' lives in jeopardy. So I'm hopeful that people remember that they are just upholding the rule of law and remember what our streets were like under the last administration, how dangerous it was, and that President Trump and these ICE officers are going after murderers and rapists, people who are trafficking our children. In fact, since President Trump has been in office, we've located over 10,000 of these missing children and been able to return them back to their family members and to their loved ones, arrested over 400 different sponsors that were out there perpetuating this kind of activity. So these ICE officers are patriots, and they're going out every day and making our streets safer.
Can I ask you a direct question, Madam Secretary?
Absolutely.
How concerned are you? Because what we saw in Alvarado, Texas, that coordinated attack with AR-style rifles, one officer getting shot in the neck, body armor. This isn't just a protest that got out of control and passionate. How concerned are you that you may have to attend the funeral of one of your agents or officers?
Oh, I think about it every day. Every word that comes out of my mouth, I think, how can I protect these officers so they can do their jobs? What decisions can I make today? I think people recognize that when you're responsible for making decisions that puts people in a situation that could cost them their lives, that it's a heavy weight that sits on you every single day. So what these people that are political have done by elevating this to where we now have a 700% increase in violence against our ICE officers is really unprecedented. It really is unprecedented, this environment that we're in. And we need to do even more to tell their stories and about what they're doing and why they're doing it.
So we want to be careful because we don't want to give too much publicity to this, but we have to ask you about it. There's this new website out that uses facial recognition and AI to identify the faces of ICE agents and then mix them with things like other things on the internet, pictures on the internet, to identify them and dox them. And the website says, why are we targeting individuals at ICE? Aren't they just doing their job? They answer it. Evil is built on the back of people doing in boring jobs, just following orders. How dangerous is this?
It's extremely dangerous. And what you were talking about, Griff, is exactly what they're doing. They're not just threatening them and doxing them, they're ambushing them. They're threatening their families. They're talking about kidnapping their families. They're, going after their colleagues. It's extremely dangerous, and the rhetoric has to stop.
What is your reaction to one of the suspects involved in one of the attacks came in under the Biden administration?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the Biden administration let in people from all over the world that are horrible individuals, along with people who came here, trying to be a part of America. But we have removed hundreds and hundreds of known and suspected terrorists through these ICE operations. We have tens of thousands of criminals that have perpetuated violence against Americans have been removed just since President Trump has been in office. So our communities are getting safer every single day, but these targeted attacks against these law enforcement officers is a disrespect and a dangerous situation that we're in, that I hope every American, if you know a law enforcement officer, go today and thank them. Cook their family a meal, go support them, and go talk about it on social media or go have their backs. I think that's been the most disappointing thing to me, is people who are silent. Because as loud as this gets, all of us who understand the work that they're doing and what they're doing to make America safe, we need to push back and talk about how proud we are of them.
And what their families, spouses, and children are going through. I want to just shift gears a little bit, Madam Secretary, because this weekend will mark the one-year anniversary since the attempt on President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania. We have a Fox Nation special now that people can watch and learn more from the Butler Emergency Services people, how they were dealing with it. And a lot of questions remain. It comes on the heels of learning that 6 Secret Service agents had been suspended. And I want to get your reaction to that and your thoughts.
Yes, so, the Secret Service has a totally different leadership team now than what they did before. and have gone through, and this report has now just been released. I know that President Trump has told me that he's satisfied with it. We've changed communication channels and protocols on how Secret Service works with local law enforcement and how they talk during these types of security events. And then, the big, beautiful bill also gave them more resources that they needed. They needed more resources as far as training, but equipment, drone technology, counter-drone technology. All of that was something that needed to be addressed, that I'm so thankful that we now have the funding that we can.
You have raised some concerns, moving on to Texas, you've raised some concerns about the alert system in Texas. Where are you on that right now? And then how comfortable are you that the administration will be able to help with the recovery efforts?
Well, we were there immediately. As soon as the flooding happened, I went there and showed up. And it was devastating. The alert system went out from the National Weather Service, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the thousands of people that were camping along the river, heard that alert.
What could be changed?
Well, I think that is always a response that the local officials make a decision for each of their towns, each of their counties, what their alert system is. I know the governor's been talking about it down there, about maybe potentially doing legislation in Texas that has some requirements to it. We certainly, as a federal government, will give them recommendations and support on what they could do, what other cities do. That's our role. And specifically with FEMA is to always come in when there is a situation like this, that we don't make the decisions for the local communities. We shouldn't make the decisions for the states, because every state is different. Every town is different. What they need for sirens or sound alerts might be different based on their topography, on how the city is laid out. So we will give them recommendations and advice, but being there to allow the state to run the emergency response, but we come in and support it, is incredibly important.
On that point, CNN is basically got a report accusing you of slowing the process. Yeah. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, there you go. Fake news. CNN, again, is absolutely trash what they are doing by saying that, because our Coast Guard, our Border Patrol, BORTAC teams were there immediately. Every single thing I was on, they asked for, we were there. The governor and the emergency management director, Nim Kidd, are fantastic. And nobody there has said anything about that they didn't get everything that they wanted immediately or that they needed. And I'm proud of the work that we've done to support that. But, we've got flooding going on in New Mexico as well,
right.
North Carolina. So I've been visiting with their leadership team and spent quite a bit of time on the phone yesterday with the New Mexico governor, getting them resources as well. And that's what we do. The fact that CNN is continuing to be political and push out fake information and false information and lies is not shocking, but it's a disservice to the country. It's a real disservice to the country, because people start to mistrust anything that comes out then over the news. And then, well, that's true.
Yeah.
But they just don't trust anybody anymore. And that's not the kind of country.
Certainly we are praying for all those communities involved, obviously in Texas, but also New Mexico, as they continue to fight dangerous situations there. You did something early on in your leadership that affects the way we fly now.
Yeah.
You held a news conference announcing the changes to TSA and what happens when we go through security at the airport. So now we leave our shoes on?
We do. And I think everybody's excited about that. That was one of the first questions that I asked. Flying on our airline systems needs to be safe. We recognize what's happened in the past in this country. My entire department was created after 9/11. It was put together in response to the attacks that we saw here in New York City and on our country. So, yes, questioning what we do as far as are our security checkpoints doing the right protocols, but also are we hospitable? Are we doing things that matter? All of those questions we asked right away. And one of the things I said specifically is, does it make a difference now with our layered technology, with the new training that we have, and also the new steps of security that we have implemented in the last 20 years, do we still need to remove our shoes? And the answer was that it doesn't add a security benefit because of the new technology that we have and the new training.
Why did it take so long?
I don't think anybody asked the question.
Right.
I guess that's the one thing that I don't know if you remember who had the job before I did. He wasn't exactly a rock star.
Well, we're glad you asked the question. Now we can all keep our shoes on.
Challenging every single thing we do has to be done. And so there'll be more announcements coming. TSA has started family lanes. So if you've got kiddos, you have your own specific lane so that those individuals can have a special screening. Our military near air bases have their own screening lanes now so they can get through faster as well. Having a tailored approach to how we do security checkpoints, safe and secure, but also get people through the checkout line, because everybody knows that traveling can be miserable at times. It shouldn't happen at the security checkpoint, and we're putting all of our TSA officials through hospitality training as well.
We thank you for traveling to sit on the couch with us.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Madam Secretary, thank you so much.
Good to be with you.
All right, good to see you.
Well, Fox News learning one of the men charged after the ambush at an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, entered the country illegally over 20 years ago and was granted a green card under the Biden administration. Meanwhile, 4 more people who tried to sabotage an ICE operation with homemade tire spikes have been arrested in California. Here to talk about it, former Trump DOJ prosecutor Jim Trusty. Jim, good morning. Let's go to this case in Alvarado, Texas. We're learning more and more, particularly about this individual that was a DACA recipient, green card holder. Where do you see this prosecution going, and what do we need to know about it?
Yeah, well, the DACA guy is a little bit of a separate strand. You know, you have 10 people that were engaged in a highly premeditated ambush of an ICE facility and ICE agents. They set up a lure by vandalizing, by shooting fireworks. When the agents started to come out, they shot 20 to 30 rounds with AR-15. So starting point on that part of the case is I'd very much like to see a plead to the sheep mentality by the prosecutors. In other words, saying, hey, you've got attempted murder charges, you've got firearm charges, you can plead guilty to everything and beg the judge for mercy, but you're not getting it from me. I think that might be the tone that gets taken by the U.S. Attorney's Office in North Texas. This guy, Sanchez Estrada, was kind of an outlier to it in that he was the spouse of one of the people involved in the ambush. And the spouse called him and said, hey, they might be coming your way. And he apparently tried to get rid of a bunch of hateful literature that was inside the house. So he's charged with kind of a lower grade offense, an obstruction type offense. And the DACA stuff, you know, look, it's obviously newsworthy. He also renewed his DACA status a couple of times during other administrations. Look, I don't think it rises to the level of the outrage that you see in my state, Maryland, where, you know, young women are raped and murdered by illegal aliens that never should have been here. But that's obviously, you know, yet another moment of the immigration system failing to protect the community. But again, the primary thing to worry about is the fact that 10 people would come together and decide it's time to murder ICE agents, shooting one in the neck. I'm very worried that Kristi Noem and Tom Homan are going to be attending a funeral if we don't find a way to change the mentality that's spreading around this country about ICE.
That is absolutely the concern of every border and immigration official out there. And, you know, specifically with this case, this was this, I'll ask you, in your opinion, a coordinated, premeditated attack? You had 10 individuals with AR-style rifles, body armor. They had two-way radios. They even had cell phones in a Faraday bag, which is used to conceal communication.
Yeah, they had body armor, 12 suits of body armor for this group as well. And look, the actions tell you that it was coordinated, right? It makes sense. This was a lure, like, let's get these guys to come out and we're going to go after them. But beyond that, right now, the investigation is undoubtedly going to recover communications between them, at least most likely. And those communications will kind of cement the deal that this was an absolutely coordinated, premeditated, heinous act by 5 men and 5 women in particular that knew exactly what they were in for when they showed up at that ICE facility.
Jim, let me turn here a little bit to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Judge Paula Zena is expected today to weigh in on whether or not the DOJ must announce its witness to basically detail what the government, the administration plans to do with him should he be released. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is more kind of judicially assisted lawfare chaos. That's the short version. The slightly longer version is this. You know, he has human smuggling charges in Nashville. The magistrate judge has basically said, I think we can actually cut him loose on these charges, let him be on some conditions of home confinement, et cetera, where he'll show up for court without being incarcerated. But normally what that would mean in this case is that the ICE detainer kicks in. He's taken into ICE custody and quite possibly removed soon. Judge Zinnes in Maryland has a kind of parallel fight going on where the ACLU lawyers are actually asking her, can you order Nashville to send him here because we're worried ICE is about to deport him. In fact, they've asked the judge to not release him too quickly from Nashville because they want to litigate a bunch of stuff in Maryland. And look, short version, in Maryland, it looks like the judge is taking things very personally, that she's frustrated with the DOJ representation and the response. She's ordering things like an ICE official to come to court in Greenbelt, Maryland to explain what's going to happen next. I think this is the kind of stuff where the Supreme Court eventually, once again, might say, hey, look, we're not going to have 700 district court judges micromanaging the executive branch and shut it down. But in the meantime, plenty of litigation, plenty of chaos, and kind of a tug of war between Nashville and Maryland about where this guy's going to be.
Chaos.
Oh my goodness. Kilmer Borrego situation has been prolonged and prolonged for way too long. You know, it should just be decided upon. All right, here we go. ICE situation. Here we go.
Democrat leaders in some of these communities and states are really, really elevating the emotion out there and lying and putting these officers' lives in jeopardy. So I'm hopeful that people remember that they are just upholding the rule of law.
So that's the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem a bit earlier today on Fox and Friends. President Trump taking aim at Democrats who are ramping up violent rhetoric against immigration and Border Patrol agents. All this coming now as ICE arrested a fugitive kingpin of the vicious criminal gang MS-13 hiding in the heartland near Omaha, Nebraska. Now, an illegal alien, he's wanted in El Salvador for 5 murders, is on the country's top most wanted list. So Jackie Heinrich's got the follow-up now from the White House. And what have we learned, Jackie? Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. The president blasted this new Democratic proposal that would require federal immigration officers to wear visible identification, but forbid them from covering their faces during most enforcement operations. He said the bill would endanger law enforcement, as DHS says its agents are facing a near 700% increase in assaults lately.
You put them in great danger, tremendous danger. And it's sort of funny when people picket in front of Columbia, in front of Harvard, and they have masks on, more than masks. I mean, you can't see anything. Nobody complains about that.
Federal immigration officers have ramped up or have been targeted, rather, since anti-ICE rhetoric ramped up back in June. That was when federal agents descended on Los Angeles to deport criminal illegal immigrants. It sparked protests that devolved into riots. In recent days, federal law enforcement officers have clashed with protesters at an Oregon detention facility. They were also ambushed in 2 separate incidents in Texas. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is not dismissing calls from within his party to defund ICE, instead claiming that ICE is going after law-abiding immigrant families. But at least one of his Democratic colleagues from the upper chamber called Jeffries out on that.
ICE agents are just doing their job, and I fully support that. And for me, and people in my party might, want to abolish it or, treat them as criminals or anything that's inappropriate and outrageous. ICE performs an important job for our nation.
President Trump praised the, quote, new John Fetterman, saying that he's right and also vowing to protect law enforcement officers. The president also questioned who is funding these people that are targeting ICE, commenting on the newness of the rifles that were used in that Alvarado, Texas ambush. Bill.
Jackie, thank you. Jackie Heinrich.
First of all, we should be praying for our leaders and the law enforcement and everybody in the United States. We should not be trying to do something stupid, okay? And also, like, John Fetterman, he's always in support of law enforcement. And for some reason, the Democrat, they're going to throw him under the bus. That's for sure. That is for sure. So people doing what they're doing to ICE agents are they're just federal agents trying to do their jobs. They are just federal agents trying to do their jobs. So, come on, y'all.
Meanwhile, Sunday marks 1 year since the assassination attempt on Donald Trump during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
And we're learning 6 Secret Service agents were reportedly suspended over the security breakdowns on that day.
Lucas Tomlinson is live in Washington with more. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, guys. Sandra and Griff. Nearly 1 year after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, some critics are still asking why there was not a proper overwatch on that roof near the stage. The 6 Secret Service agents that have been reportedly suspended have been suspended for the blown coverage, but they were not fired. The deputy director defended the agency's decision not to sack anyone. Quote, "We aren't going to fire our way out of this. We're going to focus on the root cause and fix the deficiencies that put us in that situation. Secret Service is totally accountable for Butler." Trump's assassin killed 50-year-old former Fire Chief Corey Comparatori. His widow, Helen, spoke to our own Alexis McAdams about what she wants to ask Secret Service.
I want to know what the hell they were thinking that day. Where were they? Why didn't they come pick up the radios? Why weren't they paying attention? Why did they think that that roof didn't need covered? I can see it. Our blood is all over their hands. I'm angry. I lost the love of my life. My kids lost their father. They screwed up.
Secret Service Director Sean Curran, who you see on the stage, they're responding to the criticism after the interview, saying in a statement, quote, "I have kept my experience on July 13 top of mind, and the agency has taken many steps to ensure such an event can never be repeated in the future. Nothing is more important in the United States Secret Service than the safety and security of our protectees." Now, Trump's response to getting shot that day in Butler in the ear served as a rally cry for the remainder of his campaign. He got up, as you see here, fist extended, and yelled, "Fight, fight, fight." The crowd erupted in cheers and responded, "USA, USA, USA, guys." There was a hand ride to the wire after that. Guys?
All right.
Thanks, Lucas.
Thanks, Lucas.
Thank you, Lucas. I was just saying on the couch here, it is hard to believe how much happens in such a short time. I mean, just to think that was just a year ago. And now we're hearing for the very first time from the Butler emergency first responders on the moment that they began to monitor Thomas Crooks. Listen here.
The shooter is one of those people that I began to monitor. I've seen him going in and out of eyesight, looking up and paying close attention to where our sniper units were located within that building.
Crooks was spotted on the westernmost window facing south. The Beaver County sniper asked me to come speak with him, and when I went over there, he'd showed me he'd taken 2 photographs of Crooks. He was suspicious. He kept looking up at the window I was posted at. And as he kept looking up at the window I was posted at, he walked in up against the building to the point where I couldn't see him, almost like he was hiding.
Just didn't really seem like he gave any cares about actually being at a presidential rally.
If you haven't had a chance to watch this, please do. Part 2 is now available on Fox Nation, and it's the first time that we've heard from those first responders and the look that they had at Thomas Crooks, and obviously when they started to act on that day.
Yeah, and you know, good on Fox Nation to really go and dive into this and getting that interview with the Butler Emergency Services people, because there are still a year later a lot of questions surrounding that day and that event.
Yeah. And while there are obviously some mistakes on the ground, most of those agents did their jobs and did it well. Obviously, we could talk about the security leading up to it, but the breakdown was at a higher level where the communications, the threat assessment that was being made on the ground was not making it to a position where they could take him out sooner. And obviously, we lost a great patriot in that horrible crime.
Who is obviously still, the family still demanding answers on what led up to that moment.
I'm Steve Deuce.
This is why most people are not trusting law enforcement. This is why. I mean, things like this is like, come on. Come on. All right, ICE situation going wild.
They're not just threatening them and doxing them. They're ambushing them. They're threatening their families. They're talking about kidnapping their families. They're, going after their colleagues. It's extremely dangerous, and the rhetoric has to stop.
That was Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. She was on Fox and Friends earlier today, and she was sounding the alarm on dangers facing ICE officers. And this comes amid ramped-up resistance, some of it violent and potentially deadly. So here you're watching video that shows intense clashes earlier this week in San Francisco. ICE posting about it, saying this behavior is not protesting. Todd Lyons is acting ICE director. Something that Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, just said caught my attention when she said, how do we know that this is an arrest and not a kidnapping? I'll turn it over to you. How would she know?
Well, I mean, Dana, you can see from all the video too, right? They say that ICE agents, they're not properly marked. You see them in their tactical gear, in their vest, where you blatantly see FBI, ATF, ICE, HSI, ERO, whoever's out with us. So the mayor's claims are just totally false. And what she's doing is making people afraid of us. If LA wasn't a sanctuary city, we wouldn't have to go on the streets. If they turn these criminals over to us in a secure setting, we would not be out there. So what the mayor is doing is she's stoking the flames of this, and she's the one that's making it worse than what it really is.
I want to show you this graphic. The increase in attacks against ICE agents is up 690% from a year ago, from 10 in 2024 to 79 so far this year in 2025. When it comes to masks, would you describe them as more of a need than a want?
I would say that, Dana. If you like we have talked before, if you looked at the beginning of this administration, you looked even in December, November of last year, we weren't wearing masks. ICE agents weren't wearing masks because they weren't afraid of their information being doxxed, their photos taken, addresses posted. But as you've seen the steady increase of when we started doing our law enforcement mission, that's when you saw, these left-wing activists, these groups start posting the names, faces of ICE agents, officers, and their families. So while I'm not a fan of the masks, I think we could do a better, but we need to protect our agents and officers, and I fully support them in that. I say it's a need because they need to protect their families. They need to go home safe at night. And if you just look at the ambush in Texas just recently, that's a pure sign right there that this rhetoric is really stepping up the violence, and it's getting worse.
Well, let's talk about some of the Democrats who have talked about this. Watch.
First of all, the importance and the urgency because of not just fear, Jen, but actual terror that people are feeling, not just in Los Angeles, but especially in Los Angeles, because it's clearly Donald Trump's target right now.
Some of the most inspiring things have been when people encircle courtrooms and refuse to allow ICE agents in.
Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE.
He goes on to say whatever their constitutional authority is, and I mentioned last night on the 5.
Think about it. This is a mayor saying that his office will not cooperate with ICE. ICE is a federal agency doing federal duties. So you as a mayor, you're saying you would not cooperate with ICE? That's Chicago mayor, by the way.
The left has been saying that President Trump is a threat to our democracy. It will create an existential crisis for the United States of America. And then you have the mayor of Chicago saying that it doesn't matter what the constitutional authority is of ICE and the federal government, they're not going to cooperate.
Yeah, Dana, it's so frustrating because all we're actually doing is our law enforcement mission that we've constitutionally sworn to do. And when you look at a lot of the instances that we've done recently, you hear a lot of elected officials say, if ICE has a criminal warrant, if ICE has a warrant signed by a judge or a search warrant, well, now we do. And we're out there doing a law enforcement mission, and they still don't like what we're doing. And the more they say these crazy rhetorics that they won't work with us, or they're happy when they circle a courtroom or they stop an ICE arrest, all they're doing is putting the public at risk, and they're putting ICE officers and agents at risk. It's their rhetoric and what they're saying is what's making this situation worse, and what's really putting my men and women.
And that's true, because by definition, ICE, okay, all right, let's go through it. United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that is ICE, okay? Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Agents are federal law enforcement officers. So these are federal agents doing federal duties. So you as a mayor of Chicago, you're saying, no, do not do your duty. I mean, what in the world is going on here? It's not like they're coming to deport, people that are Americans or that are here legally. All right. They're doing the job that they were paid to do. Just like you go to work and get paid for what you do. That's what they're doing. And this is what President Trump campaigned on.
Every day in harm's way, because like you showed that graph, the increase is alarming and it's dangerous. You have ICE agents being hit, struck by vehicles, being shot at. Never in my whole career did I think that would happen for doing your law enforcement mission.
Right. Well, it's a story that is unfortunately very much on our radar, but we'll continue to cover it.
Man, this is just wow. We should be praying for law enforcement and our leaders, okay? And we should be supporting Americans. We should be supporting ourselves instead of creating division. This is the United States, not the divided state. Everybody has to come together and channel one course. What in the world are we doing? All right, Peter Ducey.
Peter. And Harris, now that we have this new data point that one of the suspects in that attack on an ICE detention facility in Alvarado, Texas, had a binary trigger that lets a gunman fire more rapidly than if they were using a normal semi-automatic rifle, that tracks with what President Trump told us yesterday, that he had seen evidence that made it look like the suspects got their equipment recently from a military supply store.
Do you think that this was an isolated incident, or do you think there's a national threat of a left-wing militia that is targeting ICE and CBP?
Well, I think you have some very stupid people in the left who have some money that are making it available to these people. There's something going on, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
The president says he's not going to sign a Cory Booker, Alex Padilla bill banning ICE from wearing masks and requiring them to wear visible IDs. Padilla now says, I love this country and believe its values are worth fighting for. In a democracy, no one should have to guess if they're being handcuffed by real law enforcement or armed imposters. My bill defends against unchecked power and unconstitutional overreach. If all state and local enforcement in California can do their jobs with transparency, so can ICE. Well, the acting ICE director says that's ludicrous.
You can see from all the video too, right? They say that ICE agents, they're not properly marked. You see them in their tactical gear, in their vest, where you plainly see FBI, ATF, ICE, HSI, ERO, whoever's out with us. So the mayor's claims are just totally false. And what she's doing is making people afraid of us.
President Trump says he will do whatever is necessary to protect frontline law enforcement. He has no sympathy for these Democratic lawmaker complaints about ICE's methods. Harris.
All right, Peter, thank you very much for getting us started. The often violent resistance we are seeing now to illegal immigration enforcement and deportation is actually antithetical to what most voters want. And in fact, they voted for something different. They voted for what President Trump is delivering right now: closing the border, deporting illegals, atop his list of campaign promises. Here's CNN's own data analyst just days after the president's inauguration in January.
You see real uniformity. Deporting all immigrants who are here illegally, 55% of the New York Times. Marquette, 64%. CBS News, 57%. ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters.
All right, you can see it for yourself. You also heard him say it more than once. All illegal immigrants, not just the violent criminals. Fox News voter analysis after the election showed illegal immigration was the top issue for Trump voters, more important than the issues of the economy and abortion combined. But now, if you look across the board, a lot of people felt that way. They may not have been expressing it, but look at this came from many different networks polling. Madison Sheehan, ICE Deputy Director in Focus Now. Great to have you in Focus. And on an important day as we have the manhunt going on right now for one of those suspects accused of attacking ICE officers and law enforcement. We'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, just the consistency of the support across America for what you're trying to do. Your reaction?
Well, you saw it there. 80% of Americans.
All right, so I am getting a breaking news here that Don Bongino, deputy, um, the deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, did not attend work today. He did not go to work today. So people are saying he may have just quit the FBI, which it's not for sure. I'm not saying he quit the FBI, but they're saying that Don Bongino, deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, did not go to work today. So people are saying he may have quit FBI, but that is just speculation. Okay, it's not like he quit just because he didn't go to work today. So breaking news. Okay, so don't say Genesis said he is not more in the FBI. Okay, this is just breaking news. They're saying he did not go to work today, so he may have just quit FBI, allegedly. All right.
Voted for immigration law. Over 8 million Americans voted for President Trump, and what he is doing and being able to keep the American people safe, to put the American people first time and time again. We've sealed the border. We will continue to force laws on the interior. This is what Secretary Noem and President Trump have led the way for over the last few hundred days to be able to make this happen, and we will continue to do it. Our officers are out on the street catching the worst of the worst. Just last week, we even caught in LA a Colombian national who was convicted of murder in his country, and because of Joe Biden open border policies was let back into this country to be able to wreak havoc on our communities.
I mean, you talk about the recidivism. One of the suspects I called out is accused of 5 murders in El Salvador. The recidivism was already happening before they got in our country. So who would even have a thought that they wouldn't continue to do what they've already done? I want to get to this. One of the women charged in that ICE facility ambush made a jailhouse phone call to her husband. A source says she urged him to hide any, quote, anti-Trump evidence. Byron York's new column, titled ICE, Antifa, and the Democratic Party. He argues opposition to Trump's immigration enforcement has brought the fanatics of Antifa more closely than ever in line with the beliefs of progressive Democrats, and perhaps those in the party's mainstream, too. Would it be fair to call Antifa the militant wing of the Democratic Party? Maybe so, Byron York writes. And if it is not fair, it is closer to true than many Democrats would ever want to acknowledge. Look, it's hard to step away from the politics because it's clear that Democrats either didn't believe the polling or don't care.
Yeah, they've politicized ICE from day one, and we're seeing this time and time again. I mean, the man you showed on the screen was tampering with evidence as agents arrested him. These are not people who support the American dream, to support the American people. These are people who want to wreak havoc on our communities, wreak havoc on law enforcement, and cause harm to the American people on an everyday. And they are not the people that we want to have in our communities on a daily basis causing harm.
Well, look, Deputy Director Sheehan, it is hard to believe that people would outright not turn away or at least condemn that, but certainly turn away the opportunity for this to happen by speaking up and speaking out in their communities. A CNN panel got very tense after one panelist made this shocking comparison about the president's immigration crackdown. Watch.
We're talking about it like it's no big deal that they are kidnapping people and transporting them to concentration camps, both domestic and foreign. That is not.
I think that's kind of insulting to.
I think it's
Jewish
insulting what they're
Holocaust
doing.
survivors.
It is not insulting to Jewish.
Okay.
I find it insulting that you could even fix your mouth to defend this disgusting
are there gas
behavior.
ovens at these? It's not a death
It
camp.
doesn't matter. It's a
camp.
concentration camp.
It doesn't matter if the facts don't fit her fantasy. But it does matter. Not only is that offensive, it's dangerous. There are already people attacking ICE agents out there. Don't give them a made-up reason to go after these people.
Well, this kind of rhetoric is what we're seeing time and time again from the Democrats, from CNN and MSNBC and all of these other channels who continue to go after law enforcement officers when they are getting criminals off of our streets, murderers, rapists, gang members, and the list goes on and on again. And they are working to get these people off of our communities. It's insulting that they would go on to call these concentration camps, to insult our ICE officers like they continue to do on a daily basis, and support this rhetoric that Antifa pushes and all of these other far left groups. This is not the Democratic Party of JFK anymore, and they are proving that time and time again.
Before I let you go, real quickly, you're leading men and women. You're on a wider team to keep us safe in America, away from the worst of the worst. How concerned are you on a daily basis now about your own people in the field?
Look, we're looking after our agents every single day. We're making sure they're taken care of, their families are taken care of. We're working to protect them from doxing and the harm that they're put in the way. Every single night when my phone rings, I always worry about the safety of our law enforcement officers. But Director Lyons, Secretary Noem, and President Trump has stood firm that they will protect our law enforcement officers. And I truly believe that they will continue to do everything they can for my team and our families.
Oh man. Oh my goodness. Now ICE agents are going through all of this stuff. But meanwhile, in Nebraska, ICE arrest MS-13 kingpin. All right. In Nebraska, ICE is doing their duty and they have just arrested. This was yesterday. They arrested MS-13 kingpin. Like, isn't this what you voted for?
Get out! Get out! Walk back to me. Come on back. Come on back. Stop. Do I move?
Major takedown by ICE agents in Nebraska as they bring in an MS-13 kingpin who has been on El Salvador's 100 most wanted for nearly a decade, including before he entered the United States. Authorities had been withholding his name, but now Fox News can exclusively tell you who he is. Welcome back as America Reports rolls into a second hour. I'm John Roberts in Washington. Sandra, this is quite a story.
What an incredible development. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. John, good to be with you. The suspect's name, Melvin Varela Perez. He's been wanted for 5 murders and is considered a high-ranking member of the gang. But even though he's been on El Salvador's 100 most wanted list since 2016, he crossed the border and was released into the U.S. under the Biden administration.
Perez was arrested alongside an associate named Rene Escobar Ochoa, who had a red notice from Interpol out on him when he came across the border. The Department of Homeland Security reacting in a statement saying, quote, the Biden administration allowed 2 ringleaders of MS-13, one of the most violent gangs in the world, come straight into our country. One of these depraved aliens is on El Salvador's 100 most wanted fugitives list and is wanted for 5 counts of murder. The other has an Interpol notice for drug trafficking. These are the kinds of scumbags sanctuary politicians are protecting and letting walk free on America's streets.
Reporters are Tom Homan will be here for more on this breaking news.
This right here is what we voted for. I voted for because he said he was going to deport violent criminals. This is what Trump campaigned on, and everybody's acting like this isn't what we vote. This is what we voted for. Okay, but the left, which look, I don't like when people say the left and the right or independent, because at the end of the day, we are all Americans, and I hope someday this rhetoric of, this administration, that administration, our administration, your administration, I feel like that should stop as well, because it's just only going to create more division. And if we're going to move forward rapidly, it should be everybody needs to be on the same time. Everybody has to be on the same course, which is to create unity and a better life for all Americans. But here goes Biden's situation.
I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. On my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Oh man, Biden's doctor plead the fifth. Okay, here we go.
Am I right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution? Am I right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution?
And so it went for several minutes in a closed-door interview with former President Biden's House doctor at the White House, Kevin O'Connor. Did not answer almost every question posed to him. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer calling out the complete lack of cooperation after that meeting concluded investigating Biden's cognitive decline.
I can tell you exactly what happened. Dr. O'Connor pleaded the Fifth Amendment. This is unprecedented, and I think that this adds more fuel to the fire that there was a cover-up.
Okay, Jonathan Turley, Fox News contributor. Sir, good morning to you. Thank you for coming on, Professor. Legally, he can hide behind the Fifth Amendment. Let's talk about the legality of what his answers were first. Go.
Well, you have to keep on repeating that line because you can't get into any answers without undermining your invocation. The question is really what Congress will do about it. They can actually force his testimony by giving him a grant of immunity. Now, the key about the patient privilege is that that is often negated in a case of what's called the crime fraud exception. In fact, even laws like HIPAA have exceptions for subpoenas and criminal investigations. What the Oversight Committee is saying is we're looking into possible crimes here. You know, these are very serious allegations that even legislation was signed without the knowledge and consent of the president. That can be a crime. There's also questions whether perjury might have been committed. So Congress is in a good position here, but it's likely that O'Connor and maybe even President Biden could go to court to try to prevent even his being compelled to testify.
Okay, didn't the White House the other day say we'll give you all the immunity you want? Isn't that basically what their message was?
Yeah, and I expect that Congress would likely do it as well. They're not trying to bag O'Connor. They're trying to get at the truth here. To keep in mind, Bill, that the 25th Amendment was designed to deal with a president who's no longer capable of carrying out the duties of his office. But it's a bit of a paper tiger. It doesn't work unless you've got the cooperation of figures like the vice president and others. The only other protection we have is congressional oversight, is the ability of Congress to look into these matters. This is long overdue. You know, we had President Wilson, who was effectively out of office when his wife and others were carrying out his functions. And he was basically incapable of making any decisions. We really haven't improved much since then.
Wow. Here is, just to go back in the Wayback Machine, not too far back, 2024. Here's how a lot of Democrats, when asked about that question, they responded the following way. Watch.
Is President Biden up to the job? Absolutely.
He is as sharp as ever, as I have known him to be in my engagement, in my experience.
He's clearly up to the job. He's doing it every day. He's doing it successfully.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
Okay, that's the way it went then. This is how it went yesterday now, with Chad Pergram asking the question.
Do you have concerns about the president's health and his mental acuity at all? None whatsoever?
I had none. Now, granted, I didn't see Joe Biden every single day, but I did have an opportunity to interact with the president. I never had a concern. If there's anyone that I am concerned about their mental acuity, it is the current occupant.
We addressed.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Jasmine Crockett. You just had, look.
The legal side of this, what about the public impression that is left from not answering questions? Comer said all you're doing is adding more fuel to the fire. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, the Democrats have their own problems. You know, the Republicans are citing Representative Goldman, who said previously that invoking the Fifth Amendment is only done when you did something wrong. And they're quoting that all over the place. But the Democrats could have a hard time convincing the public to listen to them and not their lying eyes. That we all saw that debate. That was not someone who was even aware of some of his answers. And so I don't think this is going to to work for them. And this idea that somehow they can sort of talk this one away is really not going to work. There are serious questions here. It's unlikely criminal charges are going to come out of this just because of the nature of this process. It's possible. But what we do need are answers. The problem under the 25th Amendment in our current system is that there's always people invested in keeping a president, even a president who looks like, Weekend with Bernie. It's in their advantage to keep him in office. And oversight's the only way for us to penetrate that protective cocoon.
Okay, what I'm hearing you saying, though, is that this has a real good chance of coming back. Just a quick answer on that. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Yeah, because if you are not capable, you should just resign, And of course, the Democrat, they actually wanted this guy to run again. He had to debate Donald Trump for everybody in America to see that this guy can never be the next president. Like, how was he even the president for this past 4 years? Because he could not muster one complete sentence together. It was so hard to watch this guy last summer. Last summer it was just hard to watch the debate between Trump and Joe Biden. And that was when everybody was like, oh, okay, that's it. And of course, they took him out and brought Kamala Harris from frying pan to fire. Here we go.
President Trump, meanwhile, reacting to the new criminal investigation into former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey for possible wrongdoing related to the Trump-Russia probe.
But I will tell you, I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell. And maybe they have to pay a price for that. I believe they are truly bad people and dishonest people. So whatever happens, happens.
Our next guest says the CIA report makes it clear President Trump was framed and they knew it all along. Joining us now is Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Greg, good to have you here.
Good to be with you.
Good to see you. Does this make it clear that President Trump was framed?
Yeah, and I think Americans already knew that. I wrote 2 books on the subject. The Mueller report came out and confirmed what I wrote. That so much was based on a phony document known as the dossier, paid for by Hillary Clinton and Democrats, and then commandeered by those 2 guys, John Brennan and James Comey. And they manipulated the system, the document itself. They abused their power. Comey launched a case against Trump in violation of the FBI regulations. He deceived the FISA court with the dossier to gain a spy warrant. And, John Brennan took that dossier knowing that it was garbage, and he insisted that it be put in the intelligence community assessment. And even though he knew it was such a phony document, I thought, if I put it in the intel assessment, it'll elevate the credibility we can drive Trump from office. He told Congress in his testimony, oh, no, that wasn't in the assessment. Well, it was. So did he lie? Can he be charged? Arguably, yes, he can.
Interesting. Brennan is responding now to the FBI investigation. He says, Greg, Democratic principles are being eroded. This is on MSNBC yesterday.
This whole thing about the CIA note and this possible referral of me and criminal investigation, I think is just symptomatic of a much broader disease that we are confronting right now in terms of how our democratic principles are being eroded and corroded as a result of this authoritarian march that we are witnessing every day.
Reaction to that?
Well, it's classic projection. Accuse your opponents of doing what you did, right? I mean, they eroded confidence and trust in the American government, particularly the FBI and the CIA and other agencies. Single-handedly, they set back America considerably.
I was asking you during the commercial break that now very well-known James Comey post, the cool shell formation on my beach walk, he wrote and posted to his Instagram account, 8647. Why?
This is a guy who needs daily therapy. He is so obsessed with his hatred of Trump. He loathes the man. He despises his policies. It's what drove the Russia hoax. He, more than anybody else, it drove the witch hunt. And he can never quite get over the fact that he failed and he got fired. And he hates that as well. On his way out the door, by the way, he purloined FBI documents and leaked them to the media with the plan that this will trigger the special counsel and drive Trump from office. And in fact, it did drive, and Bob Mueller was appointed, his longtime mentor and friend. But in the end, his scheme failed.
Just remarkable look back. Meantime, for the very first time, Greg, since 1963, the CIA is now admitting that it monitored JFK's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, prior to the shooting. So how big of a deal are these new documents, Greg?
Yeah, I don't think it changes the final conclusion of the Warren Commission report that Oswald was a lone gunman. What it does show is that the CIA was worried that they might get the blame. We've always sort of known they kept an eye on Oswald. Of course they did. He defected to the Soviet Union, lived there 3 years, married a Russian woman, came back to the United States. He was a Castro sympathizer. 6 weeks before the assassination, he made contact with the Soviet embassy in Mexico. So, of course, they interacted with him. They were monitoring him. Why lie about it for 62 years? And I think the only answer, Occam's razor, the logical answer, is that they were afraid they'd get blamed for failing to stop the assassination of JFK.
Wow. That is an incredible development, one we will keep watching. Greg, it was really good to see you.
Good to see you, Sandra.
All right.
Here now with reaction to the breaking news. Former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor Nicole Parker and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Friends, let's review for the audience something they already know. These two figures, Jim Comey, former FBI director, and John Brennan, former CIA director, they had very prominent positions in the federal government. The security clearance as the access to sensitive information that goes along with it. Nicole, as a former FBI agent, tell us how the rank and file view people like Comey and Brennan and the shenanigans, the outright lies and crimes that they have committed.
Well, first of all, I just have to say I am a native Texan, and my heart goes out to all that have been negatively impacted by this awful tragedy. And God bless all of the first responders. We are so grateful, and I just have to say God bless Texas. To your question, the rank and file at the FBI, those that are really doing the real work at the FBI, they're absolutely disgusted by actions of Jim Comey. What he stands for is exactly opposite of what you are trained to do when you are an FBI special agent and an employee of the FBI. And the number one response that I've received from those across the board, current and former FBI employees, is, quote, "It's about time." This is something that FBI employees have wanted to see for a very long time because we believe in accountability. We are all about enforcing laws ourselves. And when you have leadership at the top who does not even obey the rules, obey the procedures and policies and the laws, that is unacceptable. And I do believe that Jim Comey is the individual who single-handedly started the destruction of the FBI, and the FBI has never recovered from his failures.
Yeah, Greg, I mean, you and I were on TV constantly about this ridiculous Russian hoax. I was in the Trump White House. The amount of time that the networks and the two other cable stations spent on something that never existed, that was fomented by Comey and pushed by Brennan, to say nothing of that ridiculous Trump Tower meeting on January 6th, 2017, where Brennan was there too, but Comey ended up saying to President-elect Trump, hey, we don't know what this is all about, but there's some kind of golden shower, Russian asset thing. Don't worry about it. And of course, we needed to worry about it. So why don't you bring us down a trip down memory lane and how we got to this point? Do you think these guys will be charged with crimes?
I think there's a very good chance. You know, I wrote 2 books about it. And in the second book, I'm gratified to see that this new information from the CIA corroborates just about everything I wrote about John Brennan, that he knew that the dossier was garbage, and yet he insisted on inserting it in the esteemed intelligence community assessment to give the dossier credibility so that he could use it as a cudgel to bludgeon Donald Trump politically. What I think is really new is that these career CIA officials have come forward and they've blown the whistle on John Brennan. Not just that he knew the dossier was junk, but literally the deputy director in writing told him, you can't use this for the ICA. It'll ruin the credibility of the intelligence community. Brennan didn't care. And, these CIA officials describe how he strong-armed everybody into putting the dossier into that ICA. He sidelined people who said no. He silenced them. He excluded 13 intel agencies from contributing to it because they also objected. So I think what they're looking at here with respect to Brennan is perjury, false statements, maybe conspiracy along with Comey.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, Greg, let me just stay with you for a moment. Legally speaking, where do we go from now? So if they're under investigation, obviously they would need to be charged. Somebody will go in and maybe do an interview with them. Possible indictments? I mean, is it enough? The list I read, who can argue with this? Lying to Congress, abusing their security clearance, abusing the FISA process?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to go to a grand jury in Washington, D.C. and get an indictment and then, of course, bring the prosecution. In D.C., bringing a case against a Democrat and a liberal is almost a fool's errand. As for James Comey, I think they're looking at defrauding the government, a conspiracy, and deprivation of rights under color of law. That is, knowingly using fabricated false evidence to support a case against Donald Trump. The statute of limitations, which is 5 years or 7 years, is actually suspended or tolled whenever incriminating evidence is deliberately withheld or fraudulently concealed. So I don't think the statute of limitations is a problem here because we're just now learning of some of the withheld, concealed evidence.
Yes, and Nicole, going back to you as an FBI agent, under Kash Patel, the FBI seems to be going in an entirely different direction. What do you hear from some of your former colleagues about the different direction we have now?
Well, first of all, going back to Jim Comey real fast, let's just remind the American viewer that he was very famous for always saying, no one is above the law. And you know what, Jim Comey? You're right. No one is above the law, including yourself. And I can tell you that there is a spike in morale at the FBI. Kellyanne, I walked away from the agency because it turned into something I no longer even recognized. And I can tell you that I started first noticing the politicization of the FBI with Jim Comey on July 5th of 2016, about 9 years ago, actually, where he came out and said no reasonable prosecutor would charge Hillary Clinton. And under the new leadership of FBI Director Kash Patel, that's not how the FBI works anymore. Kash Patel looks at the evidence and they say, you know what? Is there something here or is there not? It's not based on politics. It's based on facts. It is based on evidence. But I can tell you, FBI agents, what they want to do is get back to enforcing the law. They want to be out of politics. But most of all, they want accountability and consequences for those that are breaking the law. And that is what FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino are all about, and Attorney General Pam Bondi. And so I can tell you that the morale has increased greatly. They've got a lot on their plate. They have walked into an absolute disaster zone, but there are good, amazing FBI special agents and staff at the FBI who have always done incredible work, and they deserve accolades. They have quietly worked behind the scenes while all of this nonsense was going on, and they have worked hard and they have worked diligently. And what they want more than anything is those that have politicized the agency to be held accountable.
No, it's so true, because Comey in his book and Brennan on TV constantly, they lied in both places, but lying under oath to Congress and abusing the FISA process and your security clearance, these are potentially criminal indictments that we can see coming. We're going to keep a close eye on this, and I know we'll have you back. Nicole Parker.
Isn't James Comey the guy that said 86, 40 some? He said that he said he saw it on the beach. And look, these folks right here.
So they briefed me numerous times, the FBI, the Secret Service, sort of everybody. DOJ, Pamela's doing I think she's doing a fantastic job. But they briefed me, and I'm satisfied with it. They should have had somebody in the building. That was a mistake. They should have had communications with the local police. They weren't tied in. And they should have been tied in. So there were mistakes made. And that shouldn't have happened. And that building was a prime building in terms of what they were trying to do. So, but I was satisfied in terms of the bigger plot, the larger plot. I was satisfied. And, I have great confidence in these people. I know the people, and they're very talented, very capable. They had a bad day, and I think they'll admit that. They had a rough day.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here.
So, okay. Let me get my thoughts together so I can tell you what I want to tell you.
Well, it was unforgettable. I didn't know exactly what was going on. I got whacked. There's no question about that.
I got whacked.
And fortunately got down quickly. People were screaming, and I got down quickly, fortunately, because I think they shot 8 bullets. And one got me, and one got another one, and one got another one, and one killed Corey, the firefighter, great guy. And, we had a tremendous, massive crowd. Tens of thousands of people were there. And our sniper, within less than 5 seconds, was able to get him from a long distance with one shot. If he didn't do that, you would have had an even worse situation. It was really bad. But he really did his name is David, and he did a fantastic job. It went about his business just about 4 seconds. And that's when it all stopped, and he got him perfectly from a very long distance. So we got a little bit lucky in that regard.
So people are still asking questions about the Epstein's files. So this is it, okay? Some speculators are saying, why is Trump taking the fall for this Epstein situation? Now, is it because there are so many powerful people on the list, or maybe it's 98% of Washington, D.C.? I mean, who knows? Nobody knows who's on this list because it's not out. But speculators are saying, why is the 47th, the President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, taking the fall for this? Okay? Because, he started this whole situation where Epstein's list, MLK files, JFK files, he said he was going to declassify some of this list during his campaigns and when he was running for re-election last year. So speculators are saying, why is Trump taking the fall for this? That is the question.
Fruit spritzers, condoms, just leave me alone. You know what I mean, Greg?
What woman is she referring to that are invisible? Seriously.
She's the most popular woman in the world.
Yeah, and from what give us an example of an invisible woman. Look, I hate to tell the Dems, you can't just assume that you can take us back, because that assumes that you can change your opinion of us. All of a sudden you're going to reject all the misandry and the trans hysteria and all those narratives that not only made fun of male values, but objectively normal values. You want men and women to be okay with women and women showering with men in locker rooms, or drag queens reading to kids at libraries. How do you change that if that's who you are? If you don't like men, how can you suddenly decide not to like them? I tried that with Jodie Foster. I think you're asking too much of yourself, because the moment you say, hey, guys, come back, and we do, within 10 minutes, we're going to say something that violates your strict code of intolerant tolerance or break wind. It's ingrained in you to police thought and speech. You can't go from that to live and let live. And the funny thing about it is, their definition of tolerance is the opposite of live and let live. It's I compel you to accept my lifestyle publicly. All guys, almost all guys are the same. We want to be left alone, especially right-wing dudes. You think a farmer in Idaho gives 2 Fs about your pronoun? We're not even going to bother you about it. Just don't bother us. I just don't think you can change. I don't think liberals can actually suddenly take off this costume of misandry and go, hey, come back. How is that possible?
What will they have to do to win back men if they can't fundamentally change?
I think this is something that's been building for a long time. It didn't just happen in the last 4 years. So if you remember, during the Obama administration, we had the Life of Julia. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
This was the government policy. It was like a whole outlook that they talked about Julia and how Julia will be taken care of by the government from when she was born all the way up until she was retired and beyond. And there was no Life of Jack. There was no Life of Jack and Julia. It was just the Life of Julia. And the focus on women has been to the exclusion of men. And this maybe even goes back further, especially when it came to, even when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, where I remember my dad bought me this T-shirt. It was yellow and it had black, all caps. It said, anything boys can do, girls can do better. I know that's not true. But there was a time when there was a push to help girls have more confidence. That has helped in a lot of ways, but it was to the exclusion of boys. I remember Laura Bush, when she was First Lady, early on, she was like, we have to, as a country, start focusing more on boys in K through 12 education. And so it was building for a long time. The Democrats were going to have to deal with this. There was never a cost to them turning on men until suddenly there was. So I don't know what they're going to do. To me, if you look at Zohran Mamdani, he's basically promising the moon and the stars for free to everybody. I mean, I don't know who's going to buy that. There will be some men that do. But if that's the direction that the Democratic Party is going, because Hakeem Jeffries can't seem to say anything else, then they might be in the wilderness for quite a while.
Emily, does it have to be about pushing men down or bringing women up? Can't we just be together? We work better together, men and women, don't we?
Come on, man. This is live TV. You can't hit on her now.
Oh my God. Well, I think that the argument, that's what Trump did, right? He just saw women. He just respected women.
He respects women so much. No one cherishes women more than Trump.
You want to switch seats here? Wait, what's going on?
Stop it. This is ridiculous. All right. So here's the thing. So in this whole article and assessment, they supposedly talked to all these experts about what went wrong and how they ignored the guys, right? And they called it a blind spot. They said, what a massive voter blind spot. But it wasn't a blind spot. They excommunicated them. They said, we ignored them this time around. You didn't ignore them. You rejected and expelled and vilified men. They created an epidemic of eunuchs and a world where Dylan Mulvaney was the face of Budweiser and Leah Thomas was nominated by UPenn to be the NCAA Woman of the Year. They literally recreated her land. And here's the thing. The left saw just simple masculinity as toxic, obviously, and hyper. All of this analysis, whenever they refer to masculinity, they say hyper-masculinity. And the whole point is that Trump and the GOP just respected masculinity, just respected women, and actually went to protect biological women. So the whole thing is everything on the left sees everything as so magnified. You know, an American flag, oh, you must be a redneck, terrible, violent person. Oh, you like to be masculine, you must be terrible, instead of just respecting a normal person.
Donald Trump famously said, Harold, he's going to protect women whether they like it or not. Isn't that the message that women need to hear?
Look, I think James Carville says things in ways that really not only get people's attention, but really makes you think. Democrats forgot in many ways in 2024, and I agree with Dana, it's been building for some time, that every voter wants to be lifted up. Men, in many ways, were the swing voters in this election. His team, President Trump's team, looked at the data and said that we lost men from 16 to 20. We got to grow that number. So they did what the other campaign didn't do. They respected them, men. They lifted men up. I don't necessarily agree that we can't get them back. I never thought I would see a presidential election where the Cheneys endorsed the Democrat and a prominent Kennedy would endorse a Republican and didn't work in his administration. And then we elect a president who's a Republican, who's pro-tariff, pro-union, and pro-entitlement spending. So things can change in politics. But I'd say to Democrats, remember this as you think about this. Women who are Democrats, they bear children, and they raise little boys to be young men. So when we attack men, women who have children, who have little boys like my wife and many others, they understand what it means to raise a little boy, and they want their young men and the men in their families to be respected and not to be belittled. That doesn't mean they want them coddled, but they don't want them disrespected, and that's what we did.
Are you saying men can't have babies?
I am saying that. I want to be affirmative
Also,
about that.
at the same time, dads want their girls to not have to compete against men in sports.
Oh, no doubt about it.
And that's what I'm just saying that, like, if you add all of this stuff up, it was like, where else were they supposed to go?
But I got to disagree with you, Harold. Men don't want to be lifted up. We want to be left alone. We don't want to be pandered to. I don't think I think the Dems look at everything as groups and then they pander to them.
That's two different points. I don't disagree with you now. We do play too much identity politics, but men certainly don't want to be belittled.
Yeah.
Men want like women want as well good jobs. But men want their boys and their girls to be raised in safe communities and safe houses. I mean, I agree with you. I think those are two different points.
Yeah, we don't all men want to be left alone, Greg. I mean, we like to be given attention once in a while.
She's right there.
Look at Jesse. Look at Jesse's face. You know he wants it.
She's right there, Jesse. Except you better be careful because you got one at home right now watching you on TV. But she's right there, Jesse.
That was really smart what you just said, Harold. I would like to hear more of that coming from you. Good job.
Oh man, these guys are so funny. Like Jesse's so funny, he doesn't even try. All right, here we go. Tom Homan, orders off.
All right, back to the breaking news that we brought you earlier this hour. ICE agents arrested an MS-13 kingpin in Nebraska. He has now been identified as Melvin Varela Perez. He has been on El Salvador's most wanted list for nearly a decade, but was somehow released into the United States after he crossed the border illegally in 2023. Let's bring in White House border czar Tom Homan. Tom, let me just put up the record here of this guy that somehow got missed. First of all, here's the mugshot from his arrest in Oklahoma. Oklahoma. Now here is or Omaha, Nebraska. I'm sorry. Here is the picture from 2016. This was put out by the National Police. He's on the top 100, Los 100 Más Buscados. Then here's another notice from 2019 looking for the same guy, and another one from 2019 that was put out by Crime Stoppers looking for this guy. And yet somehow, Tom, when he came across the border illegally in 2023, he was paroled into the country. How in the world could that have happened?
Well, look, this is just one example of what I've been saying for the last 4 years. The Biden administration lied to the American people. When they said everybody they released in the country is properly vetted, they weren't. First of all, we don't have access to other countries' criminal data, but as you said, this was the public information, and this has been easily found. But this administration, their main focus under Biden administration, Border Patrol had one directive: process quick, release quick. Because if there's no overcrowding, we can keep claiming the border's secure and we got control of everything. And they kept lying to the American people. Everybody releases vetted. I can't tell you how many criminals under the Trump administration we have arrested and deported that were released in the country by Joe Biden, saying they were vetted. We have arrested murderers, people that were convicted of murder in other countries. People had murder warrants in other countries. People had sexual assaults in other countries. People had sexual assaults here that they weren't found during the vetting process because they weren't vetted. The last administration lied, and that's why we're so busy right now going across the country trying to find these people.
All right, so I could go you one better on this Melvin Varela Perez. So he was nailed in Omaha with another guy named Rene Escobar Ochoa. We'll put his picture up on the screen for you. This guy had an Interpol red notice against him for drug trafficking and conspiracy to commit murder. He had an Interpol notice against him, and that got missed. How does that happen?
Incompetence. I mean, it incompetence from last administration. Their directive to how Border Patrol process and releases without proper vetting. And also, let's remember, ICE was told by Secretary Mayorkas, you can't arrest for someone being here illegally. They probably won't even look at this person unless you had a serious criminal conviction. Not a warrant, not a want, but a conviction. So look, the last administration, they totally screwed it up, from releasing people from the border for non-vetting to tying ISIS hands. We had a record number, 10.5 million illegal aliens come to our border in Joe Biden. ICE had the lowest numbers of arrests and removals in the history of the agency because their hands were tied. And that's why we're working so hard under President Trump, under his leadership. We're working so hard right now, sending as many teams out in the communities as possible to look for these criminals that the last administration released in this country. And that's why we're so busy right now, and that's why you see all the teams out in every major city in the nation.
All right, Mark Zito is the special agent in charge of the Kansas City Homeland Security investigations. Here's what he said about these arrests. He said, quote, "These illegal aliens didn't just sneak into our country. They brought with them a legacy of violence, terror, and death. They thought they could hide in America's heartland, but they were sadly mistaken, not on our watch." So two things falling out of that. First of all, these two guys, this is the worst of the worst. How many more like them got into this country, do we know? And secondly, you're going after these bad guys. And again, these are the worst of the worst. International Interpol red notices, top 100 most wanted in El Salvador. And yet ICE and Border Patrol agents are being attacked for trying to get these guys off the streets. Comment on both those things, if you would.
Well, first of all, how many? I know that we got at least 600,000 illegal aliens in this country with criminal records walking the streets of this country. As far as how many criminals and national security threats the Biden administration released in the country, we don't have a clear number on that. We got over 2 million known gotaways. 2 million people crossed the border under Biden, weren't arrested, weren't vetted, weren't fingerprinted. They got away because the Border Patrol is so overwhelmed with that humanitarian crisis. So we don't have a number. And that's why we're working so hard with the intelligence community and FBI, ICE. We're all working together trying to find these people. And look, this is why I'm proud to be a part of this administration. President Trump has given the leadership that we're not going to this zero tolerance. We're out there looking for every single criminal threat and national security threat we can find in this nation. As far as the hate, it's because the media is lying to the American people. They keep talking about ICE raiding schools, ICE raiding churches, which isn't happening. We are focusing on the public safety threats. The men and women ICE put their lives on the line every day for this nation. They're American heroes. But I knew from day one, we talked about this, John, from day one I said they're going to vilify ICE, they're going to vilify the Border Patrol, because they don't want President Trump to be successful. They hate Trump more than they love their communities. They hate Trump more than they want law enforcement, but we're not giving them to them. We're going to be out there every damn day across this nation with over 1,000 teams looking for these people. Every single day, we're not stopping.
Well, I'll tell you.
Tom Homan, man. A lot of people say his face looks like the border wall. Look, this guy is unstoppable. No matter what people say, no matter what people do, he's always saying, we will not stop. We will keep going. And for people saying that, you know, the ICE agents are arresting normal people just going about their work or whatever. I've seen some videos on X, because on X you tend to see so many videos. You don't even know if it's real or if it's fake. That's something I don't really understand about X, because nothing is censored on X. Everything is allowed on X, because I guess that's why X is like the #1 social media right now, like probably on Earth right now. But there's so many AI generated videos on X. But that doesn't mean X isn't authentic. But I'm just saying, like, look, you better be careful when you're on X, and you actually make sure you verify. Okay. Shout out to Tom Homan. And for ICE is right now very much funded. Okay. They have enough money, they have enough resources. So you better be careful. Yeah, you're going home. Shout out to
in
Pete
Washington,
Hegseth. Here we go.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is making efforts to streamline and modernize our military by employing more modern drones. Watch this.
While our adversaries have produced millions of cheap drones, before us, we were mired in bureaucratic red tape. Not anymore. We're going to bolster the U.S. drone manufacturing base by producing thousands of American-made products. We'll arm combat units with a variety of low-cost, American-crafted drones. We're going to train as we expect to fight. Senior officers, well, I'll grab this. This is the memo. Senior officers must overcome bureaucratic risk aversion in budgeting, weaponing, weaponeering, and training. So here's the memo we're signing today, delivered via drones. This is the future. We're in the fight. We're in the fight to win it. I'm never going to back down.
That was amazing. So, it's interesting, the degree to which drones have changed the entire landscape of war. And it's not easy to be a superpower when any country anywhere in the world can deploy tens of thousands of these cheap drones. This is an effort to balance that battlefield and win back the battlefield. And I think it's probably a very, very important overdue thing that we do.
Well, and we saw the two parties so crystal clear during Hegseth's confirmation hearing, because you had the Democrats being like, well, what about women in the military, your personal life, yada, yada, yada. And then you had our Secretary, Pete Hegseth, there talking about, no, we need to modernize the way we fight wars. ISIS doesn't follow the rules of engagement. We need to be smarter about what we do on the battlefield. And then also, by the way, we need to increase our recruiting numbers as well. So he was focused on the right things. And this is so smart because you've got China is the leading producer and exporter of drones. You've also got China, along with the China-Cambodia Golden Dragon exercises in 2024, using robot dogs equipped with automatic rifles. So I think it's smart of us to catch up and make sure that we are the world's leader.
I think Elon Musk spoke about this probably years ago or months ago. I can't remember. But he's probably spoken about this like couple of times, like multiple times. He said very soon there would be no reason why you should be sending men to war. It would be, robotics in machines and stuff like that, or drones. And it's impossible for men to fight drones or to fight robotics or machines. It's just, it's an unfair battle or unfair war, unfair battle. So shout out to Elon Musk for that. And I'm sure his company is definitely, well, he said he wasn't going to be producing, arms or drones for battles or whatever. He's more focused on creating life on Mars. So, but he predicted stuff like this, and he's definitely a smart person. Probably one of the smartest human beings on Earth right now. A lot of people would say no, but I mean, it is just the facts. Elon is definitely one of the smartest men right now. He may be unstable, but that doesn't mean he's not smart.
On all of this stuff, and that we're up to date with how the new battlefield is going to look like.
Yeah, and it's not just catching up. I mean, every senior military commander watched that video and did a fist pump in the air, because you're talking about the bureaucratic process from weaponeering, cost, getting things through the federal bureaucratic process is why he's cutting all through that red tape so that they can quickly get these American drones and get them on the battlefield in lightning speed time, because that's what's needed in the threat environment that he's putting his warfighters in the environment of. And by the way, let's not forget, you're talking about the confirmation hearings, he's being attacked.
Somebody said Elon hires smart people. That makes you smart when you can recognize that that's a smart person. Hiring smart people means you yourself are smart. Easy. All right.
Anti-Israel activist Mahmoud Khalil bringing a $20 million claim against the Trump administration. He says he was falsely imprisoned and faced malicious prosecution after taking part in campus protests while being here on a green card. Former Deputy Assistant DHS Secretary and former Acting ICE Director Jonathan Fahey joins me now. Jonathan, I don't know much about the law, but I know this much. If you're going to sue the federal government, good luck with that. What say you?
Yeah, it's generally very difficult to successfully sue the federal government. And in this case, I think it's even particularly difficult because remember the case with Mohammed Khalil, he's released on bond, but the Trump administration is still appealing that decision or appealing the decision of the district court and also seeking to deport him because the Secretary of State Marco Rubio determined his presence is adverse to American foreign policy, which is within the INA. So I think his problems are still going going on with possibly being deported and also suing the federal government on things like false imprisonment, malicious prosecution. It's a very heavy lift. I think one of the most important points here, though, is it really just shows the difference between the Trump administration and the prior administration, meaning the Trump administration is removing people that they believe are a danger to the community or putting people in danger or adverse to our national interests, while the Biden administration did just the opposite and never even cared if somebody was adverse to our national interests or national security. But I do agree with you. I think it's a heavy lift for him on that. But his problems are not over with on the deportation issue, and I think that's still his biggest issue, that he may still very well be removed from the country.
Yeah, no question about that. By the way, I think it's important to point this out. He also says he will accept an apology. Now, he is justifying his claim by saying that the government is abusing its power because they think they're untouchable. And unless they feel there's some sort of accountability, this sort of abuse will continue to go unchecked. It's an interesting perspective on that, and I'm not so sure, even though he says he would take an apology, I'm not so sure how much water he's going to be able to tread with that. Meantime, a New Hampshire, that is, federal judge, Jonathan, is issuing a new nationwide block against President Trump's order seeking to end birthright citizenship. This is a district judge, Joseph LaPlante. He says the rapid adoption by executive order without legislation and the attending national debate of a new government policy of highly questionable constitutionality that would deny citizenship to many thousands of individuals previously granted citizenship under an indisputably longstanding policy constitutes irreparable harm, and that all class representatives could suffer irreparable harm absent an injunction. It's interesting because didn't we just tread this ground here? Didn't the Supreme Court weigh in on this, Jonathan?
Yeah, we sort of are in this world of like, here we go again.
Yeah.
I think what this judge is doing that makes it a little bit different is in Amy Coney Barrett's decision, they talked about, well, if you're a member of a class action, it's different than just simply a nationwide injunction where they say there's an issue before me and now my decision will apply to the entire country. To be a member of a class action, it's sort of a lengthy process where a judge has to determine that there is a class, that all the class has similar interests and other things like that. So presumably that's being done, and that's why he's doing this. But I think he might have been able to thread that needle, or he tried to. But I think one of the important points is this will all become moot probably after the October argument where the Supreme Court is going to actually weigh in on the merits of the birthright citizenship issue. And there's a couple ways it could go. It could go with Donald Trump entirely, could go entirely against him. But there could be a middle ground where it says it's the role of Congress to determine what does it mean to be within the jurisdiction of the United States, because that's a core issue here. It's not just being born here, it's being born and being under the jurisdiction of the United States.
Right.
So ultimately the Supreme Court will weigh in on this issue, but it does seem like we're going back to the same world that the Supreme Court just ruled on 2 weeks ago about these nationwide injunctions.
Yeah.
This is probably going to keep going for the next 4 years. What, is that me? Oh, okay. I see. All right, here we go. Tom Homan.
Straight to a Fox News alert, the FBI is ordering a $50,000 reward for information on a masked protester who appeared to fire a gun at federal agents during a major California immigration raid yesterday.
Doug Luzader joins us now with the very latest. Good morning, Doug.
Hey, good morning, guys. Another rough day for federal immigration agents in California after facing off with violent protesters. Yesterday, dozens of people were taken into custody during immigration sweeps at 2 farming sites, including a marijuana facility. Tear gas, smoke bombs deployed. Agents were pelted with rocks, and federal authorities are now on the lookout for a suspect who appeared to fire a gun at them. And now this from the U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, who posted on X. The FBI has issued a $50,000 award for information leading to the conviction of an unknown subject who appeared to fire a pistol at federal law enforcement officers near Camarillo. And here is another shocking detail. According to Customs and Border Protection, 8 unaccompanied minors, all here illegally, were found. There is now an investigation underway for possible child labor violations, they say. All of this as we await a decision from a federal judge in California who seems inclined now to severely limit immigration enforcement efforts by the Trump administration. This Biden appointee indicating that she may issue a temporary restraining order today, essentially siding with litigants who argue that ICE agents are violating constitutional rights. So far, she says she has only reached a tentative decision, writing, "It is truly a tentative. It is not final. My intention coming into this hearing, given the urgency and the weight of the matters at issue, is to issue my ruling tomorrow." But she has also said that she does not want to burden what she calls lawful law enforcement activities. And again, that decision should come down later today. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You know, this is also strange, and maybe the strangest part of that ruling right there is the idea that when did federal judges begin giving alerts to what they're going to, how they're going to rule tomorrow, which at some point it starts to make you think that it's all kind of a coordinated effort to give people time to the ACLU to have a press conference, for example.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You know, this judge, if this judge does go forward and issues this temporary restraining order, this is the equivalent of a judge making a ruling that the DEA can't go search individuals for drugs and narcotics on Skid Row in L.A. It makes no sense. They're carrying out federal immigration law. And one of the groups in this lawsuit, CHIRLA, the Coalition for Immigration Rights L.A., is been tied to the Alvarado, Texas attack that, you know, where the 10 individuals, and we're going to talk more about that a little bit later. But, you know, connect these dots and you see what is literally a federal judge now stepping in to say that the federal government can't carry out its duty for federal immigration law.
Well, because the judges are the new face of the resistance for the liberal left. And when they started doing it, Charlie, was when President Trump won office. They did it during his first term with all these nationwide injunctions that were issued. Now they're doing it again during his second term. But we need to be honest about what Democrats are doing. Their desire is to protect criminals. Yeah. You look at the deportations of these illegal aliens that have taken place under President Trump. 70% have been criminals or individuals pending charges. These aren't moms and kids that the Trump administration are trying to deport. They're illegal aliens. They're gang members. They're terrorists as well. And you talked about the Alvarado attack, the ambush against the ICE agents there. They were outfitted in black military-style clothing, 12 sets of body armor, 14 guns, fireworks, spray paint, two-way radios, and anti-government propaganda. What do you think that sounds like they're preparing for?
Well, look at the video just from last night, from yesterday in Camarillo, Texas. It's unbelievable. The one news agency caught on camera what appeared to be, and you can see the protesters pelting federal immigration vehicles with rocks. That is assaulting. That is textbook assaulting federal immigration, trying to deal with illegal aliens, 10 of which are minors. Now we're talking about child labor violations at this pot farm out in Camarillo. Look at them just pounding that. And then the one news organization capturing video of what appeared to be an individual firing a pistol at ICE, at federal law enforcement, and that, those are fireworks, by the way. This has gotten out of hand. This is a point that when you see this sort of response, and again, remember, this is a warrant that was being carried out. The federal immigration authorities got word that there were these two farms, one of them a marijuana farm, that was employing illegal aliens. They went in to carry out federal law enforcement and round people up. In it, they found out that there were these 10 unaccompanied, 10 underage minors, 8 of which were unaccompanied minors.
Which is kind of interesting, and then to have a federal judge then say that, no, you're rounding people up because they're brown or because of the color of their skin or because of the way, because of the language they speak. No, the whole point of a warrant is that you're not doing those things, that you're doing it with actual cause for. And of course, we've been talking about this all week with all of this crazy stuff going on, that at some point, somebody's going to get hurt. And then you have video of a protester firing a gun.
Well, and that's what the borders are. Tom Homan has been saying. He's saying, look, this is going to end with someone dying. This is going to end with ICE agents dying. And then what are Democrats doing? You only have Senator Fetterman, who is saying, look, this is wrong. We should be calling this out. We should be saying that this is disgusting. No other Democrats are doing that. But what are they doing? What are senators like Cory Booker doing? They're trying to remove the masks of ICE agents, which further puts their lives at danger at a time when assaults are up by 700% on ICE agents, Griff.
Yeah, and Charlie, I think you really hit the nail on the head, and that is, imagine the week. Let me show you. The week we have had in just the first 10 days of July, an unprecedented number of attacks on ICE and federal law enforcement. Let's start on July 1st. In Buffalo, an individual named Matthew White posts on X, "Kill them all. The ICE is the new Gestapo. Stop them." He is facing federal charges for threatening ICE agents. Let's go to 4th of July, the Alvarado assault that we were talking about. Lisa was pointing out they had AR-style rifles, they had body armor, they had two-way radios, they had Faraday bags that was trying to conceal cell phone, coordinated, planned, premeditated attack, and of the 10 individuals now facing first-degree attempted murder of federal immigration officers, there is an 11th individual, Benjamin Song, on the run, allegedly provided those weapons to the 10 protesters. Then let's go down to McAllen, Texas. An absolute barrage of bullets from an assailant on a Border Patrol annex facility in McAllen, Texas, that housed the Special Operations Division of Border Patrol. That individual deceased, but it's causing all BP facilities in Texas to get heightened security. Let's go to Tuesday, July 8th, the next day. That's when, as you're mentioning, Lisa, the Democrats, led by Cory Booker and Senator Padilla, wanting to unmask agents, while the agents, ICE, federal law enforcement, has said that they are wearing identification of ICE and HSI on them, but they're covering their faces because there are individuals trying to publicly dox these agents, putting them, their families, their spouses, their children at heightened risk. Same day, you've got 4 arrested out in Van Nuys, California, for placing allegedly tire spikes in the road, puncturing the holes of ICE vehicles, trying to stop that raid. By the way, that raid, a legal raid being carried out by warrant. And the same day, you've got up in San Francisco, agitators confronting ICE outside of immigration court. We have seen that in sanctuary cities like San Francisco, where the authorities will not turn over criminal, illegal aliens that have deportation orders, they just turn them loose on the streets. ICE trying to pick them up, but they're getting resistance and being assaulted there. And then finally, as we've been talking out in Camarillo, California, the unbelievable, there's a $50,000 reward. The U.S. attorney out there, Bill Isole, saying that they want to capture that individual that appeared to fire a weapon, fire a pistol at ICE agents who were carrying out a lawful warrant. This is the first 10 days of July. If we stay on this trajectory, Lisa, that's why Tom Homan is saying that he is, and we're going to talk to him in just a little bit. You know, yesterday on this couch, we asked Secretary Kristi Noem, DHS Secretary, I said, are you worried that you're going to attend the funeral of one of your agents? And she said she thinks about it every day.
I mean, it's just disgusting. And again, you're going to want to tune in for Tom Homan at 6:30 a.m. here.
A Fox News alert. Chaos in California. Federal agents deploying tear gas while protesters hurl rocks during an ICE raid at a marijuana farm allegedly staffed by illegal immigrants. The scene escalating when a protester seen here appears to fire a gun at the feds. The FBI now offering a $50,000 reward for info on the suspect. All of this comes as we await a ruling by a Biden-appointed federal judge who's expected to curb all federal immigration operations in Southern California. Border Czar Tom Homan joining us now. Tom, I watched that video out of Camarillo, California yesterday and was just mortified. What happened there and what is your reaction?
My reaction is the same as been from day one. That, you know, people are welcome to protest to have their First Amendment rights, but they can't cross that line. They can't impede us from doing our job. That's a felony. They certainly can't put hands on an agent. That's a felony. So what happened in California is just another example of protesters becoming criminals. And they've been emboldened by even members of Congress who compare ICE to Nazis and racists and terrorists. I mean, the rhetoric is so high, and I said 2 months ago, it's going to end up with a loss of life. And we had one the other day in Texas. And it's not over. I mean, the rhetoric has to end. ICE agents are simply enforcing the law that members of Congress enacted, that they wrote, they created, and was signed by the president. If people want to complain about the job ICE is doing, go complain to Congress. because we're enforcing the laws they enacted. We're doing our job.
Hey, Tom, can I just take you back? You just said you had a loss of life in Texas?
Yeah, you had a person attack a Border Patrol facility, firing at the facility, and BORTAC agents.
Right. The individual that assaulted him lost life. Okay, I was just clarifying, making sure you weren't making news there that an agent had lost his life, and that is, of course, the fear. But you talk about those politicians and the rhetoric that clearly seems to be fueling much of this, but you've also got some distortion of the facts. This was a post that California Governor Gavin Newsom put up yesterday. Kids running from tear gas, crying on the phone because their mother was just taken from the fields. Trump calls me new scum, but he's the real scum. We later find out there were 10 juveniles in that operation, that were 8 of which were unaccompanied minors. What do you say?
I see this every day, and I said from day one, when President Trump became president, that they're going to vilify the men and women of ICE. They'll vilify the men and women of Border Patrol. They did it during the last administration, except this time, the rhetoric's at an all-time high. Every day I get up and I read the media posts at the White House, and 90% of the stories are just fake. They're lies. So, and people say, well, the polls are kind of turning against Donald Trump a little bit on immigration. First of all, I don't believe it. And if the polls turn it off, because all the fake news out there, they're lying about what the President Trump is doing. They're lying about what the men and women of ICE are doing. And that kind of turns, the tide against us a little bit. But that's why, members of the administration are out there every day setting the facts straight. The fact is, I read in the paper the other day, the majority of people who arrest are not criminals. Wrong. Look at the data. Go to ICE.gov and look at the data. But we got some media saying, well, it's just a misdemeanor. It's not a felony. They're not really criminal. Oh, they're not convicted. They're just charged. Oh, they're not criminals. No, we're prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats, and that's a fact.
But Tom, it strikes me unbelievable that the Democrats are not on board. When you look at this raid, there were 10 juveniles that were illegally brought across the border. You and I covered this under the Biden administration. I was down in Texas. We encountered 8, 10-year-old, 12-year-olds coming across with just a name and an address and a phone number on their necks, the cartel ruthlessly sending them across. And yet now we know that 10 of them, 8 of which were unaccompanied minors, working illegally in a marijuana farm, and your agents go in and rescue them essentially, and yet there is violent resistance to that. Does that upset you?
It certainly upsets me, and like I said, the work men and women of ICE are doing is incredible. Look, we're looking for over 300,000 missing children. We've already found 10,000. Have you heard that anywhere? No, the media is simply not covering it. And look, this should be a nonpartisan issue. Arresting public safety threats and national security threats, everybody be all the same page on that. Rescuing children, it should be a nonpartisan issue. Everybody should be in lockstep on that, but they're not. The media is lying. The Democrats they don't want President Trump to be successful. I got news for them. We are being successful. Every illegal alien public safety threat we arrest makes this country safer. Every national security threat we take off the street and deport makes us safer. And we're rescuing thousands of children. The lives saved every day by ICE, the lives saved every day by Border Patrol, are in the hundreds. So it's the only thing I can think of, Griff, if they hate President Trump more than they love their community. They hate President Trump more than they want, safe communities. And there's just no other excuse why this is not, why this has become a partisan issue to take public safety threats off the street.
And before I run out of time, Tom, I've got to get your reaction to this Biden-appointed federal judge out in Los Angeles, apparently expected today to issue a temporary restraining order halting your lawful operations. She says, I think it's important for the court not to burden otherwise lawful law enforcement activities. Your reaction there?
Look, people need to understand, ICE officers and Border Patrol, they don't need probable cause to walk up to somebody, briefly detain them, and question them. They just need the totality of the circumstances, right? They just got through the observation, get articulable facts based on their location, their occupation, their physical appearance, their actions. Like a uniformed Border Patrol agent walks up to them at, for instance, a Home Depot. And they got all these articulable facts, plus the person walks away or runs away. Agents are trained what they need to detain somebody temporarily and question them. It's not probable cause, it's reasonable suspicion. We're trained on that. Every agent, every 6 months get Fourth Amendment training over and over again. These officers are really good at what they do. And if this judge would make a decision that's against what these officers are trained, what the law is based upon, then they're going to shut down operation. I think that's their end game. They want ICE to stop doing this. But if they base it on the rule of law, they're going to find out Border Patrol and ICE is doing exactly what they're going to do in accordance with law.
And you're not going to stop coming. Tom Homan, thank you for getting up with us this morning.
You got it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
What really enrages me is that Jackie was reporting with CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott saying that 10 of those arrested were juveniles, all illegal aliens, 8 of which were unaccompanied minors. So the full context here, for 4 years, I stood, it broke our hearts. The agents, the media, everyone that encountered 7, 8, 10-year-olds being sent across the border with a sign around their neck with a phone number and someone to contact, not knowing if those were the real parents, not knowing if it was part of a cartel human smuggling operation, which was vast. And now you're seeing in this specific raid, which was not, as Senator Padilla says, an unchecked power grab. It was a lawful warrant that was being carried out to stop what was happening, illegal aliens employed at this marijuana farm. But now you see that this was actually a rescue. These children were rescued from whatever situation they were in. And yet the fact that Democrats like Gavin Newsom is trying to change the narrative by saying something about children fleeing and running, being torn from their mother, nothing could be further from the truth when you look at the actual facts.
And Griff, to your point, I mean, there's a child labor investigation. So God only knows what these children have been through, yet where are the Democrats on that? Instead, what they are doing is being the party of lawlessness, protecting criminals. And that's what they're doing. Not only did Democrats import millions of illegal aliens, many terrorists, many, gang members as well, like we saw with Trende Aragua in Colorado taking over apartment complexes. So not only did they import a lot of these people, but now they're trying to prevent the deportation of gangbangers, of people who participate in potential child labor, which is this investigation. So that's what the Democratic Party is about. And then to add fuel onto the fire, you've got Democrats like Tim Walz out there calling ICE the Gestapo. You've got Congresswoman Jayapal saying ICE is a terrorist force. You've got a vice mayor of California literally calling on gangs like Florence and the 18th Street Gang to take back their turf. Charlie?
And you wonder why people believe that Democrats are genuinely, it's part of their policy to be in favor of open borders and illegal immigration, including child labor and unaccompanied minors coming over and threatening their lives coming into the country. Well, one of the big draws has always been, in addition to the open borders, our generous welfare system. The Trump administration is now cracking down on taxpayer-funded benefits going to illegal aliens, including at HHS, new restrictions from 13 additional public programs, including Head Start, health, workforce scholarships and loans, mental health and substance abuse support, family planning, and more. Over at the Education Department, they are ending free tuition at post-secondary, career, and technical education programs. This is free tuition that is often not extended to actual U.S. citizens who pay taxes, by the way. At the Department of Agriculture, they are now restricting illegal aliens from getting federally funded food assistance programs. At the Department of Labor, they're barring access to federal workforce development programs and grants. DOJ closing longstanding loopholes that have allowed illegal aliens to access taxpayer-benefited funds. And
God.
Maybe the biggest thing, and perhaps the most important thing that has been a problem for years, are states that give in-state tuition to illegal aliens in their country. The tuition that not only does that give tuition breaks to those as opposed to actual American citizens who maybe live out of state, but it also means that illegal takes up a spot that an American student who might be poor in Boston would like to get a shot at. But because of the Democrat policies, have turned entirely towards benefiting illegals over Americans.
Free education, free health care. I mean, we know the pull and push factors of the Biden crisis and unprecedented numbers coming. What was pulling them is free stuff. It's a major driver, was a major driver. So they are simply trying to cut off the incentive that would encourage people to make the dangerous trek to come illegally. By the way, when you read that, Charlie, like, other than maybe the Department of Transportation, I think you hit every department in the federal government. And so this clearly was not only a case of a few special incentives that the Biden administration was giving them, it was across the board.
Well, Joe Biden, it was like the Oprah with illegal aliens. You get this free thing, you get this free thing, you get this free thing. And we've also seen in just cities and towns about how mass migration can bankrupt and can cause so many problems. We've seen this in Springfield, Ohio. With all these Haitian migrants going to the city, draining city resources. We've also seen it here in New York City. Yeah. You've got a massive budget, a massive city, and you had Eric Adams out there saying, look, we're going to basically go broke. This influx of migrants, they're, taking our resources, and we just can't afford it. So, there's so many problems with this. And also, by the way, Charlie, this was litigated during the last election, and Americans said, we don't want our resources going to people who shouldn't be here in the first place.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And
So, the Commander-in-Chief, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, is visiting Texas to console and stand by the people who were affected by the flooding. He's there right now.
Joining us now is Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and I'm sure this visit means a lot for all sorts of reasons to lots of people. I mean, there's a lot that you guys are all dealing with there. What is the most important thing for you, if you had to pick two or three, the top things that you want the president to see, know, or that you're going to ask him for?
A lot of important things, and the president will bring everything we need, as he always does, to Texas and other states, red or blue, because he cares about people in stress. He cares about our citizens and their safety. And I know I talked to him, I guess it was 2 days ago, and his heart's breaking like everyone else's for these children and all the adults who are lost. The biggest thing we need, Dana and Bill, is I say prayer, but I mean that in a very strong way, not just thoughts and prayers. John 11:26 says, faith in eternal life brings comfort to many others. And I've been through this now for, I'm sorry, can you hear me fine?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I heard your director in my ear. John 11:26 says, faith in eternal life brings comfort to believers. And Dana, for my 10 years as Lieutenant Governor, we've seen a lot of tragedies, hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and domestic shootings. And every time when I'm around people who have suffered great loss, tragic loss, it's always the rock of their faith that they stand on. And the president honored me by appointing me chair of the Commission on Religious Liberty to look at religious rights in this country. It always fascinates me in times like this. No one objects to us praying in the public square. No one objects to people and their outpouring of prayer. And I've gotten to meet many of these families. I gave them my cell number, call me about their children or the adults that they've lost. In fact, I'm going to a funeral on Monday. And what I see is in every situation, Dana and Bill, every situation of tragedy, people stand on their faith. We're here for a short time. They'll be rejoined in heaven with their loved ones they've lost, and it's painful now. But it's faith that gets us through first and foremost, like it did for the president a year ago Sunday when he was shot. It is faith that America stands on. It is God that America looks to when we're in trouble. We'll get the money from the federal government. We'll supply the money from the state. We'll install sirens. We'll improve our warning systems. We'll take care of all of those issues. But it's faith that will get us through this. And I'm always inspired by the strength of the people I know.
Here's President Trump to NBC about the alarm system that you mentioned.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he said it. It'd be easy to blame them. I wouldn't blame them. I think from the standpoint of the future, you have to have some kind of an alarm and lighting system where alarms would go up if they see any large amounts of water or whatever it is. 2 days or the weekend before the flooding, they passed an inspection at the camp.
Yes.
And I just wonder what you think about that. I mean, obviously, I hear you on the faith point. Then there's the practicalities of what we can do here on Earth to make sure that these campers or others are alerted. And I strongly believe that we've spent way too much money dealing with like fantasies about dealing with climate change and not enough on dealing with increased severe weather.
Yeah. Well, Dana, in Texas, we poured billions of dollars into the best emergency management team in the world, and I think everyone knows that here. We had a quick response, but we had more rain, Dana, in 5 hours than we normally have from January to April at that point. It was the worst possible storm in the worst possible place in the middle of the night. We had a flood very close to this in 1932, but it was during the day, so there weren't campers sleeping along the banks of the river. And so we're going to fix all of those issues. We're going to clean up the debris. We'll restore people. But right now, they're standing on the rock of their faith. And I get a text every hour or so from another family that says, Dan, my loved one has been found. We are getting closure, and they're getting through this. These are brave people. And those responders out there, those searchers walking through the water, the snakes, all the debris under it, they're not standing on the rocks of the banks of the river. They're standing on the rocks of the bank of their faith. And that's what gets America through every time we find darkness in our lives. And it's a dark time right now in Texas, but we're looking forward, we're looking upward, and we are going to move forward with the president's help and with the state of Texas and the people at the local level and all the people around the world who have sent money in by the truckloads to help restore these lives. I've just never seen such an outpouring of strength as I've seen during this time. It's just remarkable.
All right. Thank you so much.
This is what America is all about, helping your neighbors and praying for the country. I mean, we see what happened in Texas. This is just out of this world. I mean, a lot of people have passed away due to this flooding. Children have passed away. And most of us that have kids, we know how that affects the parent. When you lose a loved one, it's just out of this world, man. But God is in control. America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. The commander in chief, the president of the United States, President Trump, is in Texas right now. And we're going to come back to show you guys that visit and what he has to say concerning what happened in Texas and the aid he's bringing to Texas. He already signed a relief funding to Texas the same day it happened or a day after. So going to Texas right now is just in good conscience and showing love to the people of Texas, which is most likely very recommended for a sitting president to do. I think he's there with Melania Trump, the first lady. So I think the first lady always likes going with him when it comes to stuff like this. She was with him in North Carolina as well, and she went to California for the wildfires. So Melania Trump definitely likes showing care and love to the American people as well. And with that being said, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God.
And God is your strength.
There you have it. God is your strength. You know what time it is. Welcome to the Genesis Show. Shout out to the members.
Daddy are signing out.
All right. Bloom and Dad are signing out. All right. We're going to be back, okay? She's here because she wants me to fulfill my promise to take her to the bouncy house. The what?
Bouncy house.
Say that again.
Bouncy house.
The bouncy house. So she wants me to take her to the bouncy house. So with that being said, shout out to the moderators, C. Shelley. God bless you for being here. Shout out to our esteemed members, the GOAT, Dr. Luke. God bless you. Also, never give up, ladies and gentlemen. Never give up on yourself. God is the greatest. America is the greatest. We're going to be back here and see you guys soon.